Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Event Industry News Podcast with me, James Dickson. Wishing you all a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever or wherever you tune into today's podcast from. I'm just back from holiday, so excuse me if I'm rambling. I was as late in the house last night and setting up the podcast studio first thing this morning to get rolling on today's episode. So if I sound like I'm falling over my words, I probably am, is the brutal truth of it. And before we get into today's podcast, we're recording this on Monday, the 18th of July. And I'm not sure when this particular episode is going to go out, probably in the next week or couple of weeks. But it's that there are weather warnings out today and tomorrow for extreme temperatures. And obviously, it's that time of year where there are so many outdoor events taking place, so many teams of people working outdoors. And whenever you listen to this, if you're working today and tomorrow and this week, whilst we've got those temperatures, stay safe, everybody. We hope everything has gone smoothly, and look after yourselves whilst you are out there. And so let's get on with today's episode. The subject of sustainability is one that we've spoken about often on this podcast, both in recent weeks, months, and over the last 2 or 3 years. Certainly pre-pandemic, we were having a lot of sustainability chats. And our guest today is somebody who can offer some insight into some learnings that they've developed, particularly in the last year or so, as all will become apparent when we find out about them. Our guest today is Dawn Lauder. Dawn is the head of international conferences at the Scottish Event Campus. The earlier this year, you may remember, hosted the COP26 International Summit. Dawn has worked in the international association market for 14 years, working with numerous European and international associations to bring their meetings to the SEC. Dawn led the bid team securing COP26 for the venue and worked with the UNFCCC and UK government through to the delivery of the summit. COP26 was one of the most important events in humanity's battle against climate change. However, during the event, new models and ideas were also discovered for how the events industry itself can become more sustainable. And to talk about some of those key learnings and 5, I suppose, key principles, you may say, today is Dawn Lauder. Dawn joins us from home, I presume, up in Scotland. Dawn, good morning.
Yeah,
welcome to the
good
podcast.
Morning. Thank you very much. Yeah, welcome to a sunny day in Glasgow, although you wouldn't know it looking at my background, but
Well,
the sun
we're all
is shining.
We're all being told to stay indoors. It's bizarre, isn't it? We wait for good weather to come along, and then when I turned on the weather on the news last night, the weathermen are saying, "Stay indoors, everybody. Close your windows.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that
your
cool
blinds
air."
shut.
Yeah, blinds shut. So we're all shutting. We wait for the sunny weather to come along, and then all lock ourselves in and close the blinds.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a definite climate change thing. Topical for today.
It is very apropos. So yeah, as I said at the intro, and maybe a slightly longer intro than some people are used to who listen to the podcast, but important, I think, to set some context about what you're here to talk about today. COP26 was internationally covered within the mainstream media, on social media. It was gigantic. Before we get into some of these principles, and I think we're going to run through 5 key principles that you would like to sort of put across on today's podcast. From a prestige point of view, how proud of you as a venue were you to be able to secure that and to have sort of received that international coverage that COP26 received?
I don't know that I can accurately describe it, if I'm honest.
Sure.
It was a really tense bid process. Yeah, the stakes were very high. We went to COP25 in Madrid knowing that we were the UK government's preferred venue and city. And that was a great insight, getting to go to Madrid and meet the UNFCCC team. And things picked up a pace quite quickly after that, and then there was COVID, which obviously affected everybody and affected them too.
Yeah.
So the silver lining to the cloud for me was that we got to work on COP for an extra year, because the people who we worked with on that event were just amazing. The team from the UK government, from the production company Identity, from UNFCCC, our team in the venue, there was just this real sense of team and camaraderie, and that was that just carried through the whole event. And the I mean, the coverage you mentioned was kind of off the charts.
It really was.
And what
Yeah.
was really nice, you know, people talk about the events industry being a friendly industry, and I think it is. And in the run up to COP and that kind of pre-coverage in the first few days, we got messages from venue pals across the world going, good luck, oh, this looks amazing, can't believe you're doing this is phenomenal. Just, and that felt lovely too, knowing that your international peer set were all rooting for you. And then afterwards it's just this big anticlimax almost, because then I was just really missing that team that I was talking about, and that camaraderie, that sense of purpose. I think having a strong sense of purpose through the pandemic probably also helped my Corona coaster, if you like,
Corona
because
coaster.
COP was, it was something really to focus on. So it was, hands down, it's a career highlight, and for all the best reasons.
You've already given me 2 more podcast topics that we could potentially talk about in advance, which is, first of all, from a production point, and I'm not going to dive into them today because we could be here for hours, but from a production point of view, the fact that you had that delay because of COVID, I'm guessing straight away there were production elements that you wouldn't have had pre-pandemic that you did have post-pandemic. I'm not even talking about social distancing and sanitization. I'm talking about people joining in on video links rather than flying there, and all that stuff that presumably happened, you know, some of it as a result of what we learned during the pandemic and how we had to meet during the pandemic. And the other one there, given what you said about that sort of almost anticlimactic sort of crash that a lot of people experience post a really major event where they've worked for months and years on in the run up to it, that it gets delivered the next day, everything gets taken out of the venue, and the next day you go and you've got an empty venue and you're back to day
Well,
again.
in fairness,
That's a whole other subject, isn't it?
It is. We did have like a just over a month of breakdown before the
Right.
last bits of COP when, but yeah, it did feel a bit weird starting back at work in January after the Christmas holidays and no COP on the horizon.
I bet it did. No, as I said, that's a whole other discussion. But what we want to talk about today, and what we want to give you the sort of the opportunity to talk about, are some of these principles, because inevitably through the delivery of this event, you will have learned and taken away things through your experiences that the events industry can learn from, and that as an industry we can really pick up on. And I know that you boiled it down for a little campfire session at IMEX a little while ago into sort of 5 discussion points, principles, whatever we might like to call them, and that today we're going to run through those 5. So why don't we kick things off? Why don't I open it up to you with number 1?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that the thought process for that session at IMEX came from, I guess, just having a unique insight into the event and across the multiple teams and organizations who are working on it. And some of the bigger legacy pieces from COP are really clear. And I felt like, and you've alluded to it, that there were these sort of key takeaways, really tangible pieces of knowledge and information that another event organizer could pick up and use and apply to their own event, with the goal of improving the sustainability of their own event. The scale of COP was different. We had 197,000 square meters of event space on the campus.
Wow.
Which is the equivalent to, I'm told, 28 football pitches.
Jeez.
To put that in context. So it was, it was big. We all know it was. 38,000 attendees over the summit period. So there were challenges at the outset around how, and they weren't just the SEC's challenges, they were everybody's, the event organizers' challenges. How do you take something that's this big and deliver it in the most sustainable way? One of the first things that COP did, and it's probably my number 1 takeaway, is they set some guiding principles for their event at the outset. They did this right at the beginning, and it gave them their North Star, if you like, when they were then working through the decision-making process and planning for the event, they had these guiding principles that they could go back to. So, for example, COP's governing, they called them governing principles, guiding principles. COP's guiding principles were to reduce the environmental and social impact, provide an inclusive and accessible setting for all, encourage healthy living, ensure a safe and secure atmosphere, encourage more sustainable behaviour, promote the use of responsible sources and resources throughout the supply chain, and leave a positive legacy. So that was they captured that as their principles at the beginning. And then they used those principles to help them make decisions. So, for example, they needed to lay 15,000 square meters of carpet,
Right.
temporary carpet. And I think carpet is a bit of a it's a bit of thorn. It's a thorn in everybody's side.
It is. You ask anybody in the events industry, that the carpet is the thorn. It goes down last. It comes up first. It gets, dealt with in how it can go straight in the bin. We've heard all sorts of different stories, but yes, it is a thorn.
So what COP26 did, and I'm just going to use COP26 as the collective name of everybody who was involved in those decisions, because there were multiple parties. But what COP26 did is they worked with an organization called Spruce Carpets, and their goal is to make a house a home. That's their governing principle. And so what COP26 did is they chose a slightly higher grade carpet,
right,
which did cost a little bit more. And they also chose light grey as a colour, not their brand colours, not the blue and the green that you see on the COP26 logo and their design palette. They went with the pale grey. And what happened was then when those carpets were lifted, they went into 1,800 homes across Glasgow and made houses homes.
Wow. That's what a brilliant thing to do.
All got reused. So that is where having that guiding principle at the outset around managing resource and sourcing sustainable materials and thinking about the life cycle of products enabled them to make a decision that meant that carpet would be fully repurposed post-event.
Yeah.
They worked with IKEA. So IKEA was one of their partners in the event. And there was a lot of furniture given by IKEA to COP. And again, being careful about what they chose, what it looked like, all of that. There was 6,000 pieces of furniture was then donated to community groups in the third sector across Glasgow. So that was also then taking their leaving a positive legacy principle as well.
Yeah.
Another example of that, managing your resources and having guiding principles to help you make decisions. There's an organization in Glasgow called Glasgow Wood Recycling. They do two things. They divert waste from landfill, and they provide employment or volunteer options to people who are either unemployed or struggling with social inclusion. They make a lot of indoor and outdoor furniture from wood, and they sell it. So from COP, they received 51 pallets worth of wood.
Wow.
So again, COP were like, okay, this is what we're doing. We know we're going to have wood. Where's it going to go afterwards? How do we manage this? How do we ensure that it goes to a place where it will be well used? And actually, there were some lovely big planters. If anybody's seen pictures of the SEC's concourse during COP26, there were huge wooden planters there.
Right. Okay.
And some smaller ones around campus. And they all came from Glasgow Wood Recycling. So they were doing the full circle there.
And just to touch on something, if I may, is that I suppose, if you can call it this, the luxury that COP had as an event is its scale, its reputation, the media coverage that's carried with it, which allows it to work with names like IKEA, which allows it to do things like donating its carpet on. Because when you make those connections as an event like COP, people are going to sit up and listen straight away. And obviously,
Mhm.
not everyone listening to this is maybe going to be in the luxurious position of having IKEA as a partner or being able to make
Mhm.
those sort of connections. But I suppose what we're talking about today is it's all about principles, isn't it? It's all
Mhm.
about, okay, you might not be able to replicate that exactly, but if you follow some of these principles that COP themselves set out into how their decision making process would be conducted, is that there an awful lot can be translated down, can't it, into the medium and smaller sized events.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it's good to learn the lessons from COP, because there are takeaways that other event organizers can use. And maybe COP definitely had the luxury of being COP26 and having IKEA donate, or however that was arranged, 6,000 pieces of furniture. But you don't need to be COP26 to work with Spruce Carpets, or to work with an organization in the third sector in your town or the city where your event is being held, to find a way to reuse materials from your event. What you need is to have that desire and that fire in your belly at the outset to go, I'm not going to put this carpet in the bin, or I'm just not going to carpet, is number one. Or if we are going to carpet, I'm not going to put it in the bin. I'm going to find a home for it. What decisions do I need to make to enable that to happen? I'm not going to see I'm going to find a home for waste wood. Glasgow Wood Recycling, granted, that's a local organisation. I'm confident it's not unique. I'm confident it's replicated across the UK.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
There's
it's
loads of
having...
furniture manufacturers. I mean, I know somebody local to me, and I'm sure most people will have seen, reclaimed wood furniture now, and fabulous
Absolutely.
bits of furniture and stuff that could be
Mhm.
made for your garden out of, pallets and old timber wood. Anything that's floating about. So you're right. It doesn't. Just because we're talking about it on the scale that COP did, it doesn't mean that organisers in their wherever they're based can't follow similar actions.
Mhm. And actually, you're picking up on one of my fourth key takeaway. So you're spoilers.
Yes.
But no, the point, you're absolutely right. It's having that as an event organizer at the outset, making a commitment to yourself and to your event to deliver it in the most sustainable way. And that also includes covers what happens with all of the waste. The second key point for me, and a big learning through COP, both from an SEC and a COP perspective, is to work with some professionals. On my notes, I've written down seek professional support, and I don't mean therapy. But if I have learned
whole other podcast.
Yeah, whole other podcast. That's back to that anticlimax once it's all over. If I've learned anything about this topic through the last 24 months, it's that it's really technical. It's highly scientific. And I am not an expert in it, just to be clear about that. But there are some real experts out there. So as a business, SEC appointed an environmental and waste manager. Somebody who I think is just absolutely phenomenal. Her knowledge is never ending, and she has the technical knowledge to make a difference, and she specializes in large sites around sustainability. So prior to working to the SEC, she worked for a huge shopping mall.
Right.
And then also, in terms of that, getting professional help, a consultant. We worked with Arup as a venue, and COP26 also appointed Arup as their sustainability consultant. So as an event organizer, you don't have to know it all yourself. You don't need to have all the answers. There are consultants, there are organizations that you can go to for some support. And yes, that would be an investment up front to get that knowledge. But I think, sustainability for me also means longevity. So it's ensuring the longevity of an event and making it a sustainable business model, which means making it environmentally sustainable. So if you can make that investment and get some professional support, even if it's just on key areas of your event delivery, don't feel like you have to do it alone.
Yeah, and there are always, without sort of sounding too ruthless about it, there are always commercial avenues that can be opened up by taking certain approaches to events. If an event is looking to bring in professionals to help with this particular aspect, why not consider monetizing it? If it's a conference, if it's a trade show, whatever it may be, why not look to have a sponsor, a sustainability sponsor? Is there a company that
For sure.
has a similar, a parallel interest, that wants to be shown to be supporting that particular work ethic? Why not look down the route if certain aspects are going to cost you more money and it is then an investment for the event? Why not look at ways of making it commercially viable as well by monetizing it?
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of routes available to people, and it's just remembering that that it is highly technical, and having a bit of specialist support could really help an event organizer. And looking at what COP did, they used specialist support. They didn't go at it alone. So yeah, lesson learned. If you can, use specialists to help you on your way. The third takeaway for me, which is it's a COP thing, but it's also just we're fortunate. We host hundreds of events a year, and everybody really is wanting to make their events more sustainable to ensure their future and longevity, as I was saying. And a key step that everybody can do is to design their events at the outset with sustainability in mind. I think this is a real step change, I would say, pre-pandemic and even a bit before. Immediately pre-pandemic, organizers would design their event and then think, okay, how do we make this more sustainable? And they would layer something on the top.
Sure.
What we need to be seeing now is that sustainability being right at the heart of the meeting. Some of the ways that I can share with you that COP did that. The first is around food. Food is up there. It's an emotive subject for everybody. And as a venue, we launched a sustainable food strategy in 2021, so just pre-COP. And COP really helped be the catalyst for us to do that. And this is something that event organizers can ask their suppliers about when they're considering food and beverage for their own event. So for any event that takes place at the SEC, 80% of our food right across campus comes from Scotland, 15% comes from the UK, and only 5% comes in from overseas. And that's like wine, coffee, and chocolate. And the things that do come in from overseas, there's a zero tolerance to air freight. So everything comes in by land.
Right.
And at COP, we had climato labeling on all of the menus, so you could see the carbon footprint of each dish. And that, again, is now something that is rolled out across all menus in our venue, whether that's retail or account catering. So it's giving the power to the consumer to make the sustainable choice that they want to make by giving them the information. So while just now there's a lot of chat about having calories and fat and protein content on food menus, I think we're not very far away from seeing the carbon footprint labeling appearing on menus just in the mainstream. And that there is a COP sustainability report, which anybody who's interested in reading any of this in more detail, I would recommend go to your favorite search engine and type in COP26 sustainability report, and you will get, there's a summary and there's a full report, and it's interesting what the UNFCCC were so clear about what food they wanted at their Congress. They know their delegates really well. And interestingly for me, the meat choices combined, we had forecast there would be X amount of meat. Not so much choices on the menu, but like total food eaten at the time. And actually it was significantly lower than, and I haven't written these stats down on my pad, and I'm really sorry that I can't quote them, but it was significantly lower in Glasgow. And I've got to wonder, is that because there was the climato labeling? Climato is an organization who can help you with carbon footprint labeling. Is it because we had that labeling on our menus and therefore attendees were informed and able to choose a lower carbon dish? So food being an important component of an event. If you're an event organizer, thinking about where your food comes from, how sustainable is it, what is local, what is coming in overseas, how much, just thinking about all of that at the outset. And that's the putting sustainability at the heart of your meeting, is thinking about these things at the outset. For COP, when they were building some of the interiors, they went with a slightly different finish. So rather than adopting that typical event build where the structural walls are covered and decorated, which uses quite a lot of non-essential materials, they just said no. And they went for a lower spec for several areas, which reduced what was used and also made it more reusable further down the line. So it's that repurposing of the materials. Interestingly for me, we did a tour of the build really early on, just to go out and see what was being built. And they had solar power. We have long hours of daylight in Glasgow in the summer months. And,
of course,
yep, benefit of being a northern city. And they had a lot of solar power generators. I'm not sure
solar generators,
for their build. And they had, as an organizer, they had prioritized energy efficiency at the outset. That was something that they discussed at procurement stage when they were talking about who was going to do what and how. So again, it's those guiding principles and having them, that being your North Star that you can go back to. And interestingly, because I do love a stat, 46% of all the energy that was used on site was on-site generated renewable energy.
Wow.
Yeah, 46%. So, and the person who was leading the external build for the production company, he actually said, I mean, this is it for me. I never want to go back. You know, there's not a diesel generator here, and I never want to be on a build with a diesel generator again. So it's thinking about it and putting sustainability right at the heart of everything that you're doing. Fourth takeaway for me, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about, is engaging with like-minded organizations. Event organizers don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. A lot of this work, some of this work, has been done by other people. So it's about creating that sense of collaboration. So talking to your peers, ask your venue, ask if you're in a city with a convention bureau, talk to the convention bureau. There is a wealth of information out there and support that you can tap into where you, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's not a competition. We all need venues, supply chain, event organizers, delegates. Everybody needs to get to a more sustainable position, and we will get there quicker if we share and collaborate. And it's not a competition. I think that's a key point.
And if I may pick up on that a little bit, again, going back to sort of cost implications and things like that, which are key for organizers, is that a lot of people will be scared of the sustainability discussion because of the potential cost implications that it could have on their event, which is understandable. But the more people that engage in any type of practice, the cheaper it becomes. It's economies of scale. You look at, and I'm going completely on a tangent here, but you look at stuff like modular LED screens, those big LED walls that you have at the backs of stages and stuff like that. Really expensive, really complex when they first came along. As more people invested in them, as more production companies made them available and bought them, they become more readily accessible within the industry. The cost of actually bringing them into your event comes down. And I see something like this as being no different. The more people who engage with it, the more people who take a proactive approach to it, then the organizations that can help you, the practices, the menu labeling, all of that sort of stuff, the more people that use organizations like that, they're obviously going to make the price and the accessibility of it better for the wider industry. So I think there really is an incentive there for everybody to participate in it and have that collective approach to it, because it will ultimately make all aspects of delivering a sustainable event a little bit more accessible if there is a cost implication. That's my two penneth anyway.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think, some of the organizations that I'm talking about, like Clamato, there's another one that comes to mind about the when you're talking, when I was suggesting talking to like-minded people, there's an organization based in the UK that COP worked with called Event Cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And they help you repurpose your materials from your meeting, or from your event, whatever kind of event it might be. They're not a big conglomerate organization. I think they're two people who did work in the events industry and wanted to do something about all of that waste. And there are organizations out there who exist because they want us to do better, and it's not just a commercially driven business.
Enterprise, yeah.
Yeah,
They've
and
entered into business for I suppose ethical reasons rather than financial gain.
that's a much nicer way of putting what I was trying to say. Thank you, James. It's like you could read my mind. So there are that's it. There are organizations out there that are existing for the right reasons, if you like, and are there to help. And an Event Cycle definitely helped COP. They were right in their planning and decision making processes. They were on site at the venue. Other organizers can use them, or if you're running an event, or if you're a venue, go and speak to the third sector in the city that you're in and find out who the organizations are that could benefit from some of the materials that come out of an event and could repurpose them. Event Cycle will help you do that, but there's also nothing to stop you doing a little bit of that digging yourself, either as an event organizer, or if you're an event organizer, ask your venue. They're local in their city. I know who they are now in Glasgow, and I know who COP use, and I know of others. It's about being motivated and wanting to go and find that information so that you can have it readily available for your event organizers to help them deliver a more sustainable event.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think just the final takeaway for me, which is also around the collaboration, is to sign up to net zero carbon events. For me, and this is a personal opinion, sustainable business is responsible business. Responsible business is sustainable business. We all want to be doing this in years to come.
Yeah.
And so it's incumbent on all of us to do what we can in our sphere of influence, to help drive this forward. And net zero carbon events is an opportunity. It was launched at COP26. It was the first time the events industry had ever had a platform at a COP summit. And it came under the umbrella of JMIC, the Joint Meeting Industry Council, with ICA, UFI, and AIPC all involved. SEC is a founding member of the net zero carbon events, and it exists to do two things. One is to pull together all the different elements of the events industry into one place. So whether you're a wedding planner or an international congress venue or a global PCO, it is to bring everybody together in the supply chain. And then secondly, it's to address that tension that does exist between the events industry and climate change. There is an inherent tension between us. And so what can we do to improve the position on this? If you sign up to net zero carbon events, you are pledging that you will be net zero by 2050 and that you will have reduced your carbon emissions by 50% by 2030. Signatories to the pledge have to publish. So this is the key bit. It's publishing and publishing their progress and collaborating on how they have achieved what they have achieved, so that it's for the greater good of the events industry. And I heard, I can't remember now the total number of signatories on it. There are some huge organizations in the events industry who have signed it. I think if you're an event organizer, then sourcing your suppliers that have signed up to the net zero carbon events pledge is a good way of having sustainability at the heart of your event. pick suppliers who have pledged to be net zero carbon by 2050. And I heard I was at a talk at IMEX earlier this year, and there was a speaker from Informa, and they
Yeah.
said that they have committed that they will only choose suppliers now who have signed the pledge.
Interesting. Which is
Yep.
for a brand like that to make that sort of statement,
Yeah.
it is clearly I suppose dangling a carrot in front of
Mhm.
suppliers who haven't signed up
Mhm.
to that, which is that if they want to work with an organization of that scale, this
Mhm.
is what we expect of you now.
Yeah, I think if you think about some of the big corporate brands that host events and meetings across the UK and internationally, they all have their own sustainability pledge. You know, the Coca-Colas, Google, Microsoft, SAP, whoever it is, they have all said they all have, as an organization, their own sustainability charter, if you like, and their own sustainability goals. They are then going to want to see that translate into their event, and therefore it's going to translate into the supply chain for events, because it's part of that global brand's positioning is to be more sustainable. And there's pressure on brands to be sustainable, in my opinion,
Yeah,
quite rightly so.
yeah, there is. It's consumer demand. It's driven by an awakening amongst consumers as to how and where their products are sourced.
Yeah.
And we've got younger generations probably thank for a lot of that, who become more socially aware of that, who are then driving
For sure.
people like Coca-Cola. Yes, they will have sustainability guidance, but we've all seen the documentaries. We all know and can understand just how much plastic they must go through on a just a daily basis, yet alone a yearly basis.
Yeah.
And I suppose again, th- with brands like that, it comes back to the UK, particularly in the events industry, always being a leader of things. um I think the UK, we've said it on this podcast, people have said it on other podcasts, and within the events industry, we have this very proud position as the UK events industry of very much leading the way with many, many practices in this industry. And globally, people look to how we're doing things in the UK events industry to see how they should be doing it. And this is very much going to be the next thing that globally we can lead. I think if we get it right in the UK.
Yeah, I think there's a real opportunity for us. And I think it helps everybody sleep better at night.
Yeah, whether we
You
like
know?
it or not, everyone is more aware of it now,
Yeah.
subconsciously or consciously.
And I
People,
think, there were some real stories kind of coming out of COP, not stories that were in the press or widely reported, but about why some of the delegates were at COP and what they were fighting for, and why, if you look at the island nations and how at risk they are because of increasing sea levels. I mean, there's a real juxtaposition then between somebody who is losing their home and drinks reception with loads of disposable items. It's like how I think we can lead in the UK events industry, and I think we should lead from a position of humanity and a position of authenticity, because this really matters. There is no planet B.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What a great quote to finish on. We've had the Corona coaster at the
There you
start,
go.
and now we've got Planet B. The 5 key principles, as I've jotted them down, just to recap, Dawn, which I think I'll run through quickly. Have some guiding principles from the outset.
Yep.
Work with professionals. Design at the outset with sustainability in mind. Engage with like-minded organizations, and sign up to the net zero carbon events. They're the 5 takeaways from
You
today.
got it.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And as I said, that there
Likewise.
is, we've probably had, I think, 4 other podcast subjects spring out of this. All sorts of stuff that we talk about. But I mean, moving forward from this, again, going back to the day-to-day of the Scottish Event Campus,
Well,
your learnings from COP26 now put you in a really I suppose, gloriously strong position as a venue, don't they? Because you have all of this knowledge, this understanding that you develop that you can now offer to other clients. So
Mhm.
clients who are looking to work under these practices going forward with their events, arguably there's no one in a better position as a venue in the UK now to offer that sort of help and guidance. Is that something that is very much now an integral part of operations going forward at the campus? Is to be able to work with clients of any size and scale to help them operate sustainably.
Yeah, absolutely. We earlier this year launched our own net zero ambition. So we've pledged that we will be, or committed to being, a net zero campus by 2030, which is ambitious. We know what we need to do to get there. We don't quite know what all the steps are going to be, but that's okay because we're working with those specialists and we're not doing it alone.
Point number
But
two: work with professionals.
there you go. But one of the kind of columns of the foundation, I don't know what you want to call it, it's like a cornerstone of our net zero 2030 strategy, is around people. And our staff, our team members are people, and our clients are people, and it's about helping everybody who we come into contact with to adopt more sustainable practices. So there is a whole piece of work being done internally with our team, but then also with our clients, and supporting them and giving them guidance on how to deliver their event in the most sustainable way. And then we've also just that's all launched, and we're working with clients on that. And the next step is for delegates, because there is, that you can take a host of water, but you can't make it drink. You can have all the recycling bins there, but if delegates choose to, or event attendees don't sort their rubbish out. So it's how do we as a venue, how do event organizers encourage more sustainable behavior from the attendees at events? And that is all coming under that people piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know what? We don't know it all. There's still lots to learn and lots to do. But I don't think you need to know it all right now. I think what you need to be doing is driving forward. You need to have that ambition to be better. And that's what's going to pull you through some of the more challenging steps that are going to come up, is that need to, SEC exists to deliver social, economic and environmental progress into Glasgow, into Scotland, and into the UK. So we have a duty of care to that building, or those buildings, if you like, to ensure that they're still there for generations to come, and able to do what they have done for previous generations to do them in the future. And that, that's a big driver for net zero 2030.
Absolutely, it is. It's important that I know it'll be really easy to find, but I am going to put the website up for the SEC, sec.co.uk, and just a reminder as well of something that Dawn mentioned earlier on in the conversation today, which is that if you go to your search engine and search for COP26 Sustainability Report, that's accessible, that's on the internet. Have a look at it, download it, and have a little look through that sustainability report. It will be a big document, I've no doubt about it.
But it's well written. It's really digestible. There's some great content in there, and some of the things that I've referenced will be in there. And the other two organisations that I mentioned are Climato and Event Cycle UK.
Absolutely. Our guest today on the Event Industry News podcast is Dawn Lauder, the head of international conferences at the Scottish Events Campus, talking about just, I suppose, a snippet, maybe not even scratching the surface of everything that was learned through the hosting and the planning of COP26 that the venue hosted several months ago now. Dawn, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. We've gone a little bit longer than we would usually go on the podcast, but so much to get through and so much more that we could have talked about. Please do come back on in future and keep us up to date with how things are progressing on this subject and with other things at the campus. But it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise. Thanks, James.
And of course, if you want to find out anything else that's going on in the world, in the wider world of the events industry, eventindustrynews.com is a place to go. If you are listening to this podcast today via one of your podcast audio platforms, then head over to eventindustrynews.com when you've got a minute and check out some of the latest news, features, special supplements, and of course, the legendary supplier directory that is on the Event Industry News website. If you are watching this already on the video and podcast area of the Event Industry News website, hello to you. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget that you can get audio only versions of all of our podcasts. Just go to wherever you get your podcasts from, search for the Event Industry News podcast, hit subscribe, and you'll be able to stay up to date with each and every episode that goes out there, as well as going back in time over the several years now. I don't even know how long it is. It's 7-8 years now we've been doing this, and listen to some of the very early versions of the podcast and the many subjects that we've covered over the years and episodes that we've done. Which brings us to the end of today's episode. Our thanks once again to Dawn from the Scottish Event Campus for joining us today. Thanks to everybody for listening and tuning into this podcast. If you want to contribute to this particular subject, just get onto your social media platforms, get onto LinkedIn. It's a hot topic in the events industry. You will be able to find something within seconds that you can contribute to or learn about. So everybody get involved in this subject. Dawn, thanks again. We hope to see you again soon. And thanks to everybody for watching. That's the end of the podcast for today. We'll see you all soon.